In September 1996, in the town of Woodsboro, California, two high school students went on a crime spree that resulted in the loss of 5 lives while dressed up in these Father Death Halloween costumes. One of the assailants, Billy Loomis, was motivated to get revenge on his classmate, Sidney Prescott, because Sidney's mother had participated in an affair with Billy's father, resulting in his mother abandoning the family. Sidney eventually defeated Billy and his accomplice, Stu Macher, with the help of on-the-scene reporter Gale Weathers. Gale went on to write a best-selling novel about the incident called The Woodsboro Murders. The book was a follow-up to her 1995 book, Wrongfully Accused: The Maureen Prescott Murder. According to GaleWeathers.com, The Woodsboro Murders came out in late 1996. Gale Weathers' second novel details the murderous plot of two angry teenagers determined to murder Sidney Prescott and her innocent friends. In a bizarre turn of events, the author herself became not only a target of the killers, but a hero. Miss Weathers' book became the Sunrise Studios hit movie Stab. Stab would go on to become one of the all-time great long-running horror movie franchises. To learn about the often unknown details of the Stab movies, including the lost trailer for Stab 2, the differences only included in the theatrical cut of the original Stab, and the dirty movie studio secrets detailed on this anonymous website, stick around to the end of this video. This video is sponsored by Audible. Welcome to Horror History. The rights to produce the movie adaptation of The Woodsboro Murders were granted to Sunrise Studios, who came to the famed horror movie producer John Milton, the man responsible for movies like Frankenpin, Is Somebody There, and The First House on the Right. He also produced Amazombies, Space Psycho, and Creature from the San Andreas Fault, all movies that featured actress Rena Reynolds, which coincidentally was a stage name for Maureen Roberts. She ended up getting knocked up at one of John Milton's parties. It is unlikely that this conception was consensual though. After giving birth to a son named Roman, she abandoned him and left Hollywood to reside in Woodsboro, where she was killed by Billy Loomis to set the real-life events that Stab was based on into motion. Milton recognized that Maureen, who had married and become Maureen Prescott, was Rena from his movies, but decided to keep that fact to himself.
I couldn't tell anyone. Can you imagine the press?
But even before that, Sunrise Studios had another Woodsboro connection. So to learn about that, let's take it back to 1972, when Billy Loomis's father lived in Los Angeles. In the early 70s, Henry Loomis was a lawyer who worked for Sunrise Studios, and his services were required thanks to a pair of incidents that occurred. The first was on the production of the cheerleader slasher movie Is Somebody There. Actress Elaine Varsi went missing, prompting Mr. Loomis to send out a memo to the company, telling them not to make any comment on the case. Just months later, on June 13th, 1972, during the production of a Russian terrorist thriller called Shutout, an actress named Loretta Fisher reportedly disappeared from the movie set in the middle of shooting one of her scenes, which left everyone baffled. Ms. Fisher's family eventually came after Sunrise Studios for damages. This lawsuit went on for over 2 years, but on April 22nd, 1974, either Mr. Loomis was able to find a legal loophole of some kind that voided the lawsuit, or Ms. Fisher's family just had no money to pursue further litigation. According to the anonymous expose website Sunrise Sucks, the Sunrise lawyer Henry Loomis parted ways with the studio the very next day after the case was closed. Rumor has it he left Hollywood for good and set up his own private practice in a small Midwestern town, Woodsboro. Of course, we now know that last part isn't accurate because Woodsboro is located in Northern California, not the Midwest. Sometime after this, Henry would meet and marry a woman named Debbie, and together they gave birth to a son named Billy in the late 70s before his affair with Maureen Prescott. I include this story because the fact that Henry and Maureen both worked at, had a controversy at, and left Sunrise Studios before having their affair in Woodsboro, which was instrumental in knocking over the dominoes that led to the creation of the Stab franchise, all seems like it's too convenient to be coincidental. But that being said, I can't picture any scenario where it isn't coincidental. It's not like John Milton told them to go have an affair in Woodsboro so that he could one day make a movie about it, and Maureen's son Roman was only a baby when she left Hollywood, so he couldn't have played a hand in it either. So I think the takeaway here is that Hollywood corrupted both Maureen and Henry. There were shady things going on all the time at Sunrise, and the bad behavior rubbed off on the two of them. They became shady themselves, which led to them having an affair. Sunrise Studios was not the mastermind behind Stab's true story, but they still did kind of cause it, indirectly. As I mentioned, Billy and Stu slashed up their high school, and Gale wrote a book about it, which became Stab. Robert Rodriguez, fresh off the heels of From Dusk Till Dawn, was brought on to direct. Will Kennison adapted Gale's book into the screenplay, and Dante Paltrow composed the score. Cinematography was done by Hawken Jones, who had worked with Milton on Frankenpimp, and the movie was filmed in Stabovision. I don't know what that is, but I assume it's some kind of blacklight effect that shows certain secrets when viewed through a special lens, such as a specially outfitted Ghostface mask. Tori Spelling, who had played Donna Martin in Beverly Hills 90210, was cast to play Sidney Prescott. David Schwimmer, of Friends fame, was cast as the inexperienced deputy Dewey Riley. They got Luke Wilson to play Billy Loomis, and Heather Graham played the human knife block Casey Becker. Quick note here from me. After this, the cast listed on the Sunrise Studios website that promoted Scream 3 does not line up with the cast listed in the search results shown in Scream 2022. I'm considering Scream 2022 to be canon, so I'll be using the names listed there. Does that mean that none of the stuff from the promotional websites is canon? Yes, probably. But I still included the stuff that doesn't really contradict the movies because it makes this video way more fun. Back to the cast list. Jennifer Jolie played Gale Weathers. Christopher Speed, also known as Joe Blow Nobody, played movie buff Randy Meeks, and Alicia Silverstone played Sydney's best friend Tatum Riley. A young Vince Vaughn was cast in his first major role to play Stu Macher. Ron Howard made a cameo as Principal Himbry. Craig Bierko, coming off his success in The Long Kiss Goodnight, played the role of Cotton Weary, the man being framed for Maureen's murder. The film opens with Casey Becker receiving a mysterious call before getting in the shower. Her masked stalker chases her through the house and out to the pool area, where she's tackled and gutted by Ghostface. Sidney Prescott and her friends hear about the murders at school the next day, and in the evening, Sidney has her own encounter with Ghostface, which she believes to be her boyfriend, Billy Loomis. However, she receives another creepy phone call after this while Billy is in custody, so Billy is let go. He runs into Sidney at school the next day.
Let me go, Sid. I didn't do it.
He's lying. He tries to convince Sidney to get over her mom's death so they can be intimate again, which doesn't go well. Sidney manages to escape Ghostface once more in the school bathroom, and this time classes are cancelled. Shortly after, so is the principal's life. Tatum's boyfriend Stu Macher hosts a party that evening where Randy explains that horror movies tend to abide by a set of rules, which the killers in Woodsboro seem to be following.
Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, say, "I'll be right back," because you won't be back.
This results in the deaths of Tatum, the news station cameraman Kenny, and almost Randy himself, but in the end, Sidney and Gale are able to defeat Billy and Stu before any more lives are lost. The studio would go all out to promote the release of Stab, but at the premiere, things would get a little bit messy. As I've mentioned, Stab is based on the in-universe books by Gale Weathers. If I lived in the Scream universe, I'd want to be caught up on the books in order to get the most out of the movie. That's where Audible's free trial comes in. You can't read Gale Weathers books, but you can have the books responsible for new movies or sequels this year read to you, like Firestarter, Salem's Lot, and Jurassic Park. Jurassic Boys! Jurassic Boys! But why use Audible when you can just go to a bookstore, spend a bunch of money, and then read some of it that day, but then just have it sit on a shelf and not finish it? Yes, this is directed at you. The Audible app makes it easy to listen anytime, anywhere, across all devices, while traveling, working out, walking, doing chores, you decide. Audible Premium Plus gives you a free title every month, or 2 if you already have Amazon Prime, and those titles are yours to keep. But there's also the new Plus catalog, which gives you access to thousands of titles that you can just listen to without spending a credit. Pro tip, use that to sample books and then choose what you want to keep. Audible is giving CZ's World viewers 30 days for free. Cancel anytime. Just go to audible.com/CZ's World or text CZ's World to 500-500. Link in description, audible.com/CZ's World. The date was April 12th, 1997. The venue, the Rialto Theater in Cincinnati, Ohio. This is where the 10 p.m. sneak preview screening of the new movie Stab would take place. Sunrise Studios distributed free tickets and even handed out Ghostface costumes to each of the attendees. The atmosphere was absolutely f***ing electric. Movie patrons chased each other in the auditorium as cloaked Ghostface decor flew above the excited audience. Unfortunately for the moviegoers, disaster was not limited to the horrors that they saw on the silver screen. Approximately 5 minutes into the film, a college student named Phil Stevens stepped into the bathroom, where he was stabbed in the face and killed by a new Ghostface killer. Like Sidney and Billy, he too was connected to Sunrise Studios. Phil Stevens is the son of the studio's commissary chef, Martin Stevens. So again, I have to ask, could this be a coincidence? Like my answer about Maureen and Henry, I think his connection to the studio is only tangential. The killers this time around were Windsor College student Mickey Altieri and Billy Loomis's mother, Debbie. Debbie wasn't married to Henry Loomis at the time that he worked at Sunrise, so I don't think she'd have any way of knowing who was and wasn't related to a Sunrise employee. It would also later be discovered that the victims were chosen specifically, not because of any Hollywood blood connection, but rather because the killers were trying to recreate the killings in Woodsboro by using people with similar names. So in the end, I think that Phil was probably at the screening because he got free tickets from his dad. Maybe his interest in horror movies even spawned from having a family member work at the movie studio. But it's unlikely that the family connection has anything to do with why he was chosen as a victim. The killer at the theater, which was most likely Mickey, since he goes to college with the victims and has been known to carry around a camcorder, steals Phil's jacket and returns to his seat in the auditorium, where he then stabs Phil's girlfriend Maureen, who dies very publicly in front of the movie audience. This incident gets a ton of coverage in the press, and the studio discusses the possibility of even pulling the movie. Although this was most likely just virtue signaling, in reality they likely had no intention of doing so.
It'd be stupid to pull this movie. With all this free press, they're gonna have huge numbers this weekend.
The incident fueled a cultural discussion about if the movie could have been responsible for the crimes that occurred in the theater. So in actuality, they promote the movie even harder, sending the star, Tori Spelling, on television to be interviewed by Nancy O'Dell.
So tell us about this part you're getting rave reviews for.
Well, I play this young girl, Sydney Prescott, who discovers that her boyfriend's this crazy serial killer who also killed her mother the year before that.
So what kind of research did you do for the part?
But during this theatrical run, the events of the next Stab film were playing out in real life at Windsor College, where the real Sydney Prescott was taking classes. Once again, Gale Weathers showed up to report on the new story. Sorority girl Cece Cooper was stabbed and thrown over her balcony. Sydney herself is attacked that same night, but manages to survive. The next day, Randy is not so lucky. Mickey manages to take out Sydney's 2 security details, her roommate, and her boyfriend before Sydney and Cotton manage to get the better of him and Mrs. Loomis. While Mrs. Loomis had only been out for revenge, Mickey's motive is significant to the Stab franchise. He actually wanted to get caught.
I've got my whole defense planned out. I'm gonna blame the movies.
For him, it was all about the trial and the entertainment and attention that comes with it. It's likely that he was jealous of the extra notoriety that former NFL player O.J. Simpson gained during his murder trial, which occurred a couple years beforehand in 1995. According to Forbes, more than 150 million viewers, 57% of the country, tuned in to watch the live broadcast of the verdict at 10 a.m. on October 3, 1995. For comparison, that's more than that year's Super Bowl, which drew in 125 million. News stations covered O.J. continuously throughout the year, so Mickey probably envisioned himself in that spotlight. Those plans were foiled when he and Mrs. Loomis were killed that evening, so he never got his big trial. But he would still receive a lot of posthumous media attention as the villain in Gale Weathers' new book, The Windsor College Murders. Per Gale's website, Miss Weathers is once again in the eye of a dangerous storm and emerges a hero. This time, murder follows Sydney Prescott to college, where Miss Weathers is covering a story on the copycat murders of 2 students during a screening of the hit slasher film. Read how Gale single-handedly brought the killers to justice in this exciting novel that became the hit movie Stab 2. That description might be slightly embellished, considering she was actually passed out in an orchestra pit when the killers were brought to justice, but I'm sure Sydney wouldn't mind having the spotlight shifted away from her. It was probably around this time when John Milton greenlighted the production of Stab 2, but before that would happen, there was still the home video release of Stab 1 to worry about. Stab is listed as having a 111-minute runtime, same as Scream, though it's not known if that refers to the theatrical cut or the home media cut. I'm not calling it the extended cut because just based on the opening scene where Casey is killed, it seems that the theatrical cut is nearly 4 minutes longer. The biggest difference is probably the music. In the theatrical cut, we hear the song Red Right Hand, whereas the home release cut contains these haunting strings. The out-of-universe explanation for this is that Scream is the only film not to contain the song Red Right Hand at all. According to Scream.fandom.com, this is because of a copyright issue, though they don't link any evidence to back this up. I'm guessing they're trying to say that Scream 4 couldn't afford the licensing fee. The 4th movie has the same budget as the 3rd, but if you adjust both for inflation, the 4th is actually 30% lower. This could also serve as an in-universe explanation. Maybe the studio had the budget for Red Right Hand for the theatrical rights only. And this really happens from time to time. To use another example from 1997, the MTV show Daria first aired with music from popular artists, but it had to be replaced with stock music for the VHS and DVD releases. I've lined both cuts of Stab up by their common points, and I'm going to do a full comparison of the two. The theatrical cut from Scream 2 is on the left, and the home media cut from Scream is on the right. But first, there's one thing that I want to highlight that neither of these shows: the previews. Because nobody wants to be advertised to while they're in the middle of watching something. Okay, so whenever one of the cuts has added content, I'll just pause the opposite version. And if you don't care about the minuscule differences between the cuts, feel free to just skip to the next chapter of this video. The fourth Scream shows this Robert Rodriguez title card, which we don't see in Scream 2, but it probably did happen just before Phil and Maureen walked into the theater. Then we're in sync. Until this part. So there's an added scene in the home release, but we don't see it. We'll fast forward through the parts where neither stab is shown until the Gale Weathers title card. Then we've got more of neither stab being shown, but there are some nice parallels. Then there's a section where there's added content on the Blu-ray, but again, we don't see it until here, and it's just a black screen. Very exciting. But it leads into the fade-in to the Becker house. There are 4 extra seconds in the theatrical cut, which we don't see, followed by 5 extra seconds of Casey entering the bathroom and turning on the lights. We're back in sync. Then there's a long added portion in the home release cut, 1 minute and 38, but we don't see any of it because Scream 4 is focused on Gale before finally Casey turns on the shower. And you'll notice some of these bathroom shots that linger a bit are cut down for the home release. Audiences are just as excited about seeing Heather Grimes back in 2010 as they were back in 1997. Then we don't see either stab, so we can fast forward here, where we still don't see either screen yet, but there are 4 to 5 seconds cut out of the home release. We actually see slightly more of the shot of Casey turning around in Scream 4, which makes me wonder if the full cut is sitting around somewhere. I'll do a short fast forward to Casey walking to the phone. Then there's a second added to the home release to put us back in sync for Casey answering the phone.
Hello? Hello? Who is this?
There are big chunks of the conversation only present in the theatrical cut. I wonder if this is considered lost media in the Scream universe.
Were you expecting somebody?
Home release must be the definitive version because everybody has it memorized. And then the whole section of Casey walking around the house and talking to Ghostface was actually cut out of the home release as well, which is kind of a shame because we missed this hilarious line.
I don't even have a boyfriend right now.
Would you like one?
This section is another portion that was removed from the home release. On the Scream 2 side, we don't see Stab, but we do hear Ghostface taunting her. Nothing's really happening, so I can kind of see why they cut this. So I'll fast forward again to...
You know, I don't even know you. And I dislike you already.
Then it's back to seeing neither stab, so I will fly through this and note that it includes another huge chunk of the theatrical cut that was removed from the home release. The cut portion is 1 minute and 42 seconds, and we don't see any of it. Then these 5 seconds are only present in the home release. The next part may or may not be in sync. We don't know because we only see a tiny glimpse of the screen in Scream 2, so I'm fast forwarding. This is probably in both cuts. We only see it in Scream 2 though, so I just figured I'd show you this in real time because we're about to fast forward to a shot you can only see in the home release. We skip forward again, landing us in another big portion that was removed from the home release. This one lasts 2 minutes and 23 seconds overall, part of which includes this shot. And this shot. And this shot. And these 3 shots. And who could forget these? It's likely that some of these shots were condensed and included somewhere in the home release during one of the off-screen portions because they're kind of important to get us from point A to point B. Then this next part is weird. We actually cut back to Stab in both movies, first in Scream 4, then moments later in Scream 2. So I had to pause Scream 4 because they're showing different shots entirely. Obviously things don't match up between the two because of the different shot being used. But then we fast forward again up until another big chunk that is only in the theatrical cut. This one lasts 22 seconds and includes both of these shots. Then there's one last point where the 2 movies are in sync. And that is the last part we see of Stab in Scream form. There's a little bit more Stab footage shown in Scream 2 before the scene ends. Well, that was fun, unless you skipped it, in which case, moving right along. With the release of Gale Weathers' new book in 1997, the race was on to make a sequel to Stab. The producers of Stab would return and be joined by Floyd Malone and Fred Rifkin, who had worked with Milton on Is Somebody There and First House on the Right. This time, Jerry Rapp got the call to direct. I'm not sure if this is the same Jerry Rapp that went on to write the movie Looking Glass. Everyone else returned for Stab 2, but the new character additions were decidedly less star-studded than the original film, with Dusty Penn as Sidney's new boyfriend Derek Feldman, Sharon Batten as the sorority girl Cece Cooper, Casey Storm as the movie-obsessed killer Mickey Altieri, and Lauren Velez as Sidney's roommate Hallie McDaniel. Notably, there were 2 additional characters added here that weren't part of the real events, Sonia and Allie. I'm guessing they were brought on to be additional victims to add some extra gore to the movie. Although the movie was produced and finished very quickly, it was not without struggle, thanks to high tensions between producers John Milton and Fred Rifkin on set. According to the Sunrise Sucks website, the duo had a number of run-ins over the years, but none matched the one on the set of Stab 2, where there was a huge blowout on location at Columbia College, a school known for producing the iconic horror YouTuber Cece's World. Milton allegedly was going through drug addiction issues at the time, and Rifkin wanted him banned from the set, but Tori Spelling used her influence to protect Milton. As a result, the production was split into 2 camps, and things eventually boiled into a physical confrontation between Rifkin and Milton. The two had to be pulled apart, and this time Milton was banned from being on set, which made Spelling and other cast members very unhappy. Despite the drama, after much anticipation, the Stab 2 trailer was released.
Last night, 2 students were brutally murdered at a local movie theater.
The first trailer for Stab 2 features a lot of familiar scenes, yet unfamiliar faces.
Gale Weathers reporting live.
No, it is not. This trailer was a bonus feature on the DVD for Scream 3. The obvious answer as to why the cast is filled with random people is that, like the other bonus stuff from Scream 3, it's not canon. But again, I'm gonna come up with an excuse to incorporate it because it's the closest thing we have to footage from Stab 2. Until a Scream movie gives us actual footage of Stab 2, this is too much fun to leave out. So think about it like this. In Scream 2, the movie within the movie is Stab. But if Stab 2 is the in-universe equivalent of Scream 2, then there has to be another movie within the movie in Stab 2. The movie that the Stab versions of Maureen Evans and Phil Stevens go to see at the beginning. I think that's what we're seeing here. Just as this clip was originally used to promote Scream 3 in our real-life universe, it would also have been used in the Scream universe to promote Stab 2. There is actually some precedent for the Stab movies inside the Stab franchise still just being called Stab. Remember that the opening of Stab 7 is 2 girls sitting on a couch watching a movie called Stab 6. One interesting thing about the Stab 2 trailer is that it seems to stray further from the actual events of Scream 2 than the original Stab did. For one, Windsor College is now called Columbia University. There are also brand new Ghostface scenes and seemingly new characters. I'm guessing this is Allie, played by Angela Kong, and even some creative liberties in the dialogue. For example, in Scream 2, we never hear the end of the 3rd rule.
And number 3, if you want your sequel to become a franchise, never, ever...
How do we find the killer, Randy? That's what I want to know.
But in the Stab 2 trailer, we hear all of them in full.
Number 1, body count's always higher. Number 2, the death scenes are much more elaborate. Number 3, never ever, under any circumstances, assume that the killer's dead.
The hype must have been high for Stab 2, because it seems that before the movie was even released, the studio greenlit another sequel. Stab 2 was most likely released in the summer of 1999, based on the fact that while Stab 3 was shooting in August 1999, they're actively advertising Stab 2 on buses in LA. The movie begins with 2 new murders at a movie sneak preview of Stab. It's discovered that both victims are students at Sidney Prescott and Randy Meeks College. Naturally, Gale Weathers shows up to cover the story, but this time goes up against another reporter who goes by Deborah Salt. Gale attempts to set up a reconciliation interview between Sidney and Cotton, but Sidney is not interested. Dewey also flies into town to try to help protect Sid when he hears what's going on. That night, a sorority girl named Cece gets taken out by Ghostface, and Sidney narrowly avoids the knife herself. Her boyfriend Derek helps fight off the intruder, but since nobody actually saw his fight with Ghostface, he becomes a suspect, due to the injury on his arm conveniently missing any critical arteries, and he is a medical student after all. Sidney's roommate Hallie and her film nerd friend Mickey also get interrogated, and Sidney is given a personal security detail. The next day, Derek tries to calm Sidney's worries by serenading her in front of the whole dining hall and giving her his Greek letters, but a Ghostface encounter during a rehearsal for the play that she's in still leaves her shaken. Dewey, Gale, and Randy determine that the culprit is trying to recreate what happened in Woodsboro, but this time using rules and tropes that dictate horror movie sequels. officials. They receive a mysterious call, but while trying to track down the killer, Randy is abducted and loses his life. Meanwhile, Sidney has a scary confrontation with Cotton Weary, who still wants his interview, and he's arrested, if only temporarily, as they have no evidence against him. Not long after, Dewey and Gale are attacked while reviewing film evidence, and Sidney and Hallie are attacked while fleeing the town in a vehicle with Sidney's security guards. Sidney ends up being the only one to get away from the car crash alive, and soon after finds herself lured into a trap on the stage of the play that she was set to star in. After sacrificing Sidney's boyfriend in front of her, the killers reveal themselves as Mickey and Deborah Salt, or as Sidney knows her, Mrs. Loomis, Billy's vengeful mother. With a little help from Gale and eventually Cotton, she's able to defeat her attackers once again, and Dewey even lives to see another day. As I mentioned, production on Stab 3 Return to Woodsboro had already begun at some point during the second movie's theatrical run. Location scouting began in June 1999, and casting was completed before the end of the first week of June. This time, much of the original cast did not come back, including Tori Spelling, David Schwimmer, and Craig Bierko. Some have speculated that they did not feel comfortable starring in a franchise that was connected to so much real crime, but I would guess that maybe they weren't interested in doing a fictional continuation of a non-fiction story, kind of like how Kate Winslet wasn't in Titanic 2. It's also likely that Tori Spelling did not want to return thanks to the infighting and tension on set during Stab 2. The studio held a massive talent search to find the next Sidney Prescott, in which 50,000 girls tried out. The part ended up going to newcomer Angelina Tyler, which she was able to secure by sleeping with the producer John Milton. The new deputy Dewey Riley would be actor Tom Prince, who was well enough to play the part despite crashing his car a month prior. To fill Craig Bierko's role as Cotton Weary, they simply got the real Cotton to make a small cameo as himself. Jennifer Jolie reprised her role as Gale Weathers. Since many fans were upset about the decision to kill Randy in Stab 2, a new character named Ricky, another video store employee, was created as an homage, and the role was given to Tyson Fox. Fox is rumored to be the illegitimate son of Sunrise Studios head Don Crosby and actress Leticia Yancey. Similarly, the new character Candy seems to be an homage to Tatum from Stab 1, and this spot would be filled by the 35-year-old Sarah Darling at the request of her agent, even though she wasn't thrilled about it.
Stab 3. Jesus, I gotta get a new agent.
Supporting cast included Dan Ardondo as the swimming coach, Barry Barkley as computer geek number 1, and Brett Riley as obsessive fan. It seems the movie also included multiple Ghostface killers, a sheriff, a principal, an innocent crash victim, a hooker, an English teacher, a woman named Jan, and a man named Ted, among others. As for the production team, Fred Rifkin was initially supposed to direct, but according to the documents in Sunrise Sucks, he was already not in good standing with the other producers after repeated conflicts while shooting Stab 2. However, he wasn't removed until after one scandalous evening where John Milton shared a $25,000 hotel room with Hollywood agent Beverly Choi. Choi represents the acclaimed music video director Roman Bridger, who happens to be Maureen Prescott's bastard son. Just 2 days after Choi and Milton slept together, Rifkin was fired from Stab 3, and Roman was brought on to replace him as part of a 2-movie deal with Sunrise Studios. Strangely, in this interview with Gale Weathers, Roman claims that he cannot reveal anything about Stab 3, including basic information about who's starring in it, due to a sworn secrecy with Milton, who he refers to as Master Milton. Apparently, this confidentiality is so secretive that he can't even communicate with Jerry Rapp, the director of Stab 2, about it. This extreme dedication to secrecy extended to Will Kennison's script.
The producers told us that there are 3 different versions of the script, something about trying to keep the ending off the internet.
Another challenge arose when longtime director of photography Hawken Jones passed away not long before shooting, and was replaced by Peter Deming, who shot Evil Dead 2, and Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. The only other notable crew brought on was Dewey Riley himself, who was hired as a technical advisor due to his experience in surviving both Woodsboro and Windsor. Jennifer Jolie credited Dewey with helping her understand the real Gale Weathers, but it's likely that Dewey only took the position as a crutch after his breakup with the real Gale. If he couldn't have the woman he wanted, being around her best imitator was the next best thing. In addition to all of that, John Milton allegedly still owed Gale money for the right to adapt her books. Despite all the tension and drama during the pre-production stages, Stab 3's production would make those problems look like a walk in the park, as things were about to get a whole lot more serious. Distribution and production meetings for Stab 3 Return to Woodsboro were held near the end of June, with principal photography most likely beginning in July, with plans to continue shooting through August and into September, wrapping with second unit shoots in the latter half of the month. Though we don't know much about the story due to its fictional nature and the fact that it was never completed, we can pick up little details. August 2 and August 3 are shot in a location called a dorm bathroom, and the first kill of the movie involves Candy getting killed while in the shower. Other shoot locations include Sid's dorm room, the library, a coffee house, and Sid's party. This would suggest that Sidney is still in college in this movie. The others are fairly generic locations: houses, a hospital, and somewhere called Grant Hill. Obviously, the subtitle of the film is Return to Woodsboro, so a big part of it must be the main location, Woodsboro. We see huge sets being constructed, including Sidney's house, Stu Macher's house, the TV news van, Sidney's childhood room, and even Stu's garage, which, judging by the open fridge and prop blood on the pet flap, looks to be part of a series of flashbacks. Based on this, I'm going to infer that Stab 3 Return to Woodsboro was about a new pair of Ghostface killers who start attacking more people at Sidney's college, prompting administrators to cancel classes and send students home, essentially the college version of what happened in Stab 1 and Scream 1. Returning home causes Sidney to have a flashback to her mother's murder.
Scene 34. Maureen's murder flashback.
Once she's back in Woodsboro, the killers try to recreate each of the scenes from the original Stab with the new addition of Ricky, who gets a huge pair of scissors through the head. But this time, the killers hope to avenge Billy and Stu by defeating Sidney at the end of the movie. As Sidney revisits the locations of her past, she's also forced to relive flashbacks to the horrors that she experienced around town.
Scenes 40 through 47, the Prescott house flashback.
But of course, she's not alone. She has new and old friends that are looking out for her.
Scene 50, Dewey saves the day.
This is all kind of ironic though, because Roman is the director of Return to Woodsboro, and in real life, he is also recreating many of the kills using the cast of his movie as his victims. He's also probably recruited Angelina Tyler, aka the new Sidney actress, to assist him as the second killer. If you want to know more about that, watch my Scream 3 Things You Missed, where I talked about the fan theory that Angelina is the second killer in that movie. Shooting has begun, and it's late July or early August, based on the fact that Candy is preparing to shoot her death scene, which is going to roll on August 2 and 3, when Roman takes his first victim, Cotton Weary. When the news breaks, the producers and studio executives get together to discuss the possibility of pulling the plug on the movie, which of course, since there's money to be made, they don't.
Detectives, there's no reason to presume that Cotton's death had anything to do with this movie, is there?
He was making a movie called Stab. He was stabbed.
Candy is the next target. Roman calls her into an after-hours meeting in the production office, and one of the killers corners her in the prop room. The entire staff is interrogated by police, and the movie is shut down. But that doesn't stop the body count from rising. First, Jennifer Jolie's bodyguard Steven Stone gets the knife. The rest of the cast receives faxes with new script pages, so Roman is essentially rewriting his movie in real time. And the next scene involves Tom Prince accidentally using a lighter in Jennifer's gas-filled house, causing it to explode with him inside. Roman also tracks down Sidney, who is living a secret life of seclusion up to that point, so she travels to LA to be with Dewey and Gale so that she doesn't feel alone. Roman almost seems to be recreating the events of the Stab 3 Return to Woodsboro script, only instead of Sidney returning to the real Woodsboro, she's returning to the Woodsboro set in Hollywood. The gang also receives a tape from Randy Meeks, who explains that they are once again dealing with a new set of rules. This time, they're in the midst of a trilogy final chapter. While exploring the movie set version of her old neighborhood, Sidney is nearly killed by the Ghostface duo, so she's taken to the police station for protection. While this is going on, Gale, Jennifer, and Dewey show up in John Milton's office to confront him about their discovery that Maureen Prescott was in his movies in the 70s. Afterwards, they receive a call from a voice who they believe to be Sidney, telling them that she's going to Roman's birthday party at John Milton's mansion. So they decide to meet her there. Unfortunately for them, it's a trap. They discover a voice changer, cell phone, and Ghostface costume in the closet, and Gale comes across Roman's body and incorrectly believes that he's dead, making it easier for him to take out his partner Angelina and then Tyson and Jennifer without drawing suspicion. Using Dewey and Gale as hostages, he calls Sidney over to the party, for real this time. He reveals himself in the secret screening room and explains his entire motive, his desire to get revenge on the family that shunned him away. He brings out the hostage that he's planning to frame, John Milton, who Roman sees as the source of all of his issues because he allowed Maureen to be taken advantage of by Hollywood predators, causing him to be born in shame and abandoned. Sidney catches him off guard, and with Dewey's help, she's able to eventually finish him off. Sidney returns home with her friends, no longer having to worry about her past coming forward to haunt her, and Dewey proposes to Gale. She accepts. If all of that sounds like the plot of a movie, Sunrise Studios agrees with you, because in place of Stab 3 Return to Woodsboro, they decided to go forward with a new movie, Stab 3 Hollywood Horror, based on the failed production of Stab 3 Return to Woodsboro. As usual, first came the book, Hollywood Horror by Gale Weathers. We don't know exactly when the movie came out, but there's a good chance they waited a little while. For one, they needed to wait for Gale's book to come out and reveal the ending. They also needed to find a new producer and an entirely new cast, unless of course Tori Spelling was willing to come back now that it was based on a true story again. Perhaps she would do the movie in honor of her good friend John Milton. It also makes sense that they'd take a break before doing the next movie. Not that they ever cared about capitalizing too soon on a tragedy, but they'd probably want to take a step back and up their security before beginning another project. Regardless of when it came out, it seems like there's a significant time gap in the narrative.
How long have you and Dewey been married?
10 years.
Oh, just like your characters in Stab 3. Wow.
I'm not sure if they were married at the end of Stab 2, or if this is something that happened in between movies, but it seems to suggest that Stab 3 Hollywood Horror is set in 2007 or later. However, it must have come out before that and been set in the near future, assuming that they aren't releasing more than one Stab per year, that is. We can assume that it did pretty well at the box office, because the franchise would soon be brought back with another attempt at a fictional revival. However, the real Sidney Prescott did not like her story being used, and it's easy to see why, considering all the trouble that the movies have caused her.
But then she threatened to sue them if they used her story, so then they just started making stuff up.
So the Sidney character that they had created continued to be in the movies, but they were no longer related to any events relating to her real life. Gale Weathers also wanted to continue cashing in on the Ghostface IP with a fictional installment, so she wrote this book, Ghostface Returns, though it's not clear if this was before or after the release of Stab 4. I'd assume one of the post-trilogy films was probably based off of this book though. Next up was Stab 5, Clock of Doom, which introduced time travel into the fray, which did not go over well with fans.
I mean, if you ask me, this whole franchise goes off the rails with number 5.
Stab 5 has time travel, which is by far the worst.
Still, the movie did well enough to justify a 6th film. Stab 6 brings the franchise into the era of social media by introducing a duo of Facebook killers. Not much is known about the actual movie, Stab 6, that exists in the Scream universe. Remember, I'm going off the assumption that the Stab movies contain a fictional franchise of movies within the movie also called Stab. Going off the logic established in Scream 2, where the actors in Stab are different people than the actors in Scream 1, we can assume that the footage on your screen right now is not an actual clip of Stab 6, but rather the movie within the movie in Stab 7. But like Stab 1, it's probably very close to the real thing with only a few minor differences, so let's explore the opening of Stab 6, which contains one detail that tells us more than you might have realized.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes?
Who is this?
Stab 6 opens with an homage to the original Stab, a teenage girl answering a phone call from a mysterious caller. Our characters are Sherry and Trudy, and like Casey from the original movie, they're getting ready to watch a horror movie. Sherry picks Saw 4, and although Trudy isn't a fan, this helps us place the movie in the Stab timeline, because Saw 4 was released on DVD and Blu-ray in January 2008, meaning that this movie takes place sometime after that. We already established that Stab 4 takes place at the very earliest 2007, and Stab 5 has time travel, making it impossible to place. So 08 seems reasonable here, especially given that it involves a Facebook killer, Trudy is using a sidekick phone, and Sherry still has a standard definition TV. The two discuss Trudy's Facebook stalker when the phone rings with a threatening voice on the other line.
You hang up on me and I'll cut through your neck until I feel bone.
Trudy suddenly becomes worried and checks to make sure the doors are locked when the doorbell rings and a message comes in daring them to open it. Sherry does so to reveal seemingly no one, but another text gives them a better idea of the killer's location.
It says I'm not outside. I'm right beside you.
And when Sherry tries to run, she's cut off by the second killer, who makes good on the promise about her neck. And that is basically all I can tell you about Stab 6, if indeed that actually happens in Stab 6, because the clips you just saw are from Stab 7. So let's move on to Stab 7. For the first time in a while, I can definitively tell you a little bit about the cast. Stab 6 Sherry was played by Lucy Hale. We can't say for sure what she might have been known for at that time because we don't know exactly when Stab 7 or any of the other post-trilogy Stabs came out. My best guess is that it came out in 2008 because in Scream 4, Charlie says that Stabathon is a marathon of all 7 Stab movies and that this is their 3rd annual Stabathon. However, I'm not going to nail that down because it's entirely possible that in previous years, Stabathon was only a 6-movie marathon, so it's impossible to say when movies 4 through 7 came out for sure. We can't really even use that Saw 4 reference in Stab 6 to help nail down a date, because the later Stab movies all take place in the near future, so the existence of a 4th Saw movie could very well have just been a prediction. Anyway, Lucy Hale is joined by Shanae Grimes as her friend Trudy. The actual Stab 7 characters are Chloe and Rachel. Chloe is played by Kristen Bell, and Rachel is played by Anna Paquin, who is a child star who started acting at 4 years old and played Rogue in the 2000 X-Men. After watching the intro of Stab 6, Rachel turns off the movie and complains that the whole self-aware, postmodern meta-horror has been done to death. Chloe argues that she likes the realism of Stab, which is ironic considering that Stab 5 had time travel, but Rachel counters by ragging on the formulaic nature of a franchise with too many sequels.
There's no element of surprise. You can see everything coming.
Chloe tells her to just shut up and watch the movie, and with one more stab, turns the movie back on and continues watching. It seems that Stab 7 shares the goals of Scream 4 in that it's all about doing the unexpected. Not only is the timing of Chloe's attack surprising, but the intro also leaves us with a surviving killer who we know the identity of for the first time. In this sense, Stab 7 directly addresses the fans' criticisms about the movie's predictability. Unfortunately for Stab fans, the series seems to have a hiatus after this, another example of its running parallel to the Scream franchise. At some point, Sunrise released a Stab box set, which included a documentary about the true story behind the Stab trilogy. The box set contained Stabs 1 through 7 on Blu-ray. The films would also make their way onto the streaming website Netflix. After over a decade of waiting, fans would be subjected to a new self-titled movie, Stab 2021. It seems the new iteration was directed or produced by Rian Johnson, who made quite a name for himself over the previous decade with Looper, The Last Jedi, and Knives Out. To promote the movie, Johnson did an interview on Dead Meat. The film clocked in at a whopping 2 hours and 32 minutes and was given an R rating. Stab 2021 appears to be another fictional endeavor, despite the fact that the real Sydney did survive a new set of killers in 2010 in Woodsboro, where she was attacked by her cousin and her boyfriend. It's likely that Sunrise Studios did not try to use this story because of Sydney's threats of a lawsuit if they used her real story. In fact, this would be the first Stab film not to feature a Sidney Prescott character at all.
Sydney's in every movie but the last one.
But even though this 8th installment would mostly be fictional, there are little connections to the second Woodsboro murders, like the inclusion of a character to represent Deputy Judy Hicks.
Jesus, my mom was a character in one of them.
And the title, simply being Stab, which suggests that this movie is probably a requel. The killers in the second Woodsboro murders, aka Scream 4, were out to create a requel. Only one casting choice is known. Matthew Lillard was the voice of the new villain, Flamethrower Ghostface. Despite the copious amounts of hype for this movie, fans seem to really dislike it.
And don't even get me started on Ghostface's signature new weapon. That is lit.
And can we talk about the title? Stab? What, just like the original? Just call it Stab 8. It's Stab 8. You're not fooling anyone.
Between Ghostface's new silver face, the replacement of his robe with a sleeveless hoodie, the use of a flamethrower, which is a weapon that does not even stab its victims, the fact that the killer is so clearly male, eliminating probably 50% of the suspects and thus making the movie far more predictable, the lack of legacy characters and franchise connections, and the departure from numeric naming conventions, people were already calling for the studio to redo it, using the hashtags #RedoStab8 and #RedoStab2021 to drum up a movement.
You go on 4chan and Reddit. All they're talking about is how Stab 8 pissed on their childhoods, how they crammed in social commentary just to make it elevated, how the main character is a Mary Sue.
What's a Mary Sue?
You really don't want to know.
The film was so bad, it even drove a crazed superfan to engage in a new set of Woodsboro murders.
Anyway, it sucked balls. Because nobody takes the true fans seriously. Not really.
However, after defeating Ghostface number 9 and 10, Sydney and Gale decide not to ever speak publicly about the incident so that the evildoers would die in anonymity. Does this spell the end for the Stab franchise? Well, it will certainly be harder for the movies to remain relevant without a real-life connection, and without Gale to even write any fictional stories upon which to base the movies. But if Stab and the movie industry have taught us anything, it's that as long as there's a dime to be made off the Stab IP, you can probably expect more garbage to be shoveled out. At least we know Rian Johnson is getting work. I want to give a thanks to Joey Noberini II. He archived all of those old Scream websites that are no longer online, so this video would not have been fully possible if not for his contribution. If you want to learn more about the history of the Scream franchise, head on over to that playlist on the left, where I'll be analyzing many characters in the Scream canon. If you love horror, make sure you subscribe to CZ's World for new horrors every week, ring the death bell and select all notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Assuming we both survive.